was Piers Morgan's interview of Nick Fuentes. I think it was yesterday. Last I saw, it had over 2 million views. I think that's just on YouTube. I think it's probably got many more views, and clips of it are circulating, and each one of the clip has about a million views. So we're talking about millions and millions of views for this interview. Piers Morgan interviewing Nick Fuentes, and I'll tell you why I think it's a horrible mistake for somebody like Piers Morgan to interview Fuentes. But let me first say that I'll give Piers Morgan credit for this. I'm not going to give him much credit, but I'm going to give him credit for this. That is that Piers Morgan didn't just do softballs. He actually challenged him on real issues, showed him clips, racism, anti-Semitism, thinking Hitler's cool, and attitude towards blacks, and a bunch of other things. So he really did push Nick Fuentes on these issues, and I guess that's to his credit, given that Tucker Carlson didn't, just gave him softball after softball. Steven Crowder, that was a pathetic interview of, again, softball after softball, and then Steven Crowder did a commentary on the Piers Fuentes interview while watching the videos, and he backed Fuentes throughout. He was supporting Fuentes throughout the whole thing. So at least Piers was willing to challenge Fuentes on his views. The problem is that it serves no purpose, no function, other than to give credibility to Nick Fuentes. The whole interview is a way to elevate the profile of Nick Fuentes. Now, a bunch of people who might have never heard of him, who probably didn't know he existed, now, had to be exposed to him. Some percentage of them might even be attracted to him and might pursue his channel. I think viewership of Nick Fuentes' stuff, I'm sure, has gone through the roof since Tucker Carlson interviewed him, and a bunch of others interviewed him, and he's in the mainstream media all over the place, and everybody's talking about him, including me, I guess. All because these so-called mainstream people are sanctioning him, are giving him a platform, are giving him a stage to spout his vile, stupid, ridiculous ideas. And here's the thing. While Fuentes' ideas are vile and stupid, Fuentes is not stupid. Fuentes is smart. Fuentes is smart. He's definitely a lot smarter than Piers Morgan. Fuentes knows what he's doing. Piers Morgan does not. What was the purpose that Piers Morgan set out for himself in interviewing Nick Fuentes? To show that he's a racist? Nick Fuentes admits it openly. To show that he's anti-Semitic? Nick Fuentes just shrugs it off and denies he's anti-Semitic, and denies he's a Holocaust denier, and claims everything that related to that was a joke. To show that he's a misogynist, Fuentes just admits that. He has no problem. He has an exchange between Morgan and Fuentes. You're not gay. Fuentes says, no, but women are very difficult to be around. Piers Morgan says, yeah, this is a gotcha question. Should they vote? Fuentes says, no. They should stay at home. Fuentes says, yeah. So you're a misogynist dinosaur. Have you ever had sex? And Fuentes says, no. And Piers Morgan thinks he's really got him because he says, wow, this, says the man who never got laid. That is, you've got opinion about women, though you haven't got laid. But, Fuentes comes across as, it's an abhorrent set of ideas, but his audience is like, Yeah, somebody said on the Piers Morgan show, never been said before that women shouldn't vote. They take it as a victory. And what did we learn? That Nick Fuentes hates women? I mean, anybody who knows anything about Nick Fuentes knows that, and everybody else doesn't need to know that because Nick Fuentes is irrelevant to them. And the only way Nick Fuentes is going to become relevant is if people like Piers Morgan make him relevant by introducing him to the world, interviewing him, thinking they got getchas. Piers didn't know what to do. So, he says, "Are you a racist?" And Nick Fuentes says, "Yeah, everybody's a racist." He says, "I'm a race realist because I'm realistic about race and I'm realistic about people, being a little bit racist. Everybody's a little bit racist," Nick Fuentes says. And you can see a lot of people going, "Yeah." And he goes on about, most crimes in America committed by blacks. And Piers Morgan gets all upset and he says, "Well, mass school shootings are committed by whites." And it's like, what's the point of that? I mean, Fuentes wins on that point, right? Because Piers Morgan is trying to deny reality. It's the question of what do you do with that? What conclusion do you come from that? How do you behave as a consequence of that? Which is the question, not the fact. The fact is true. So sadly, Fuentes just uses this opportunity to kind of, in a sense, make fun of, when Piers Morgan asked him about whether 6 million were killed in the Holocaust, Fuentes says, more than 6 million, probably 7 million. 6 million is a lowball figure. and nobody knows if he's joking or if he's telling the truth or what exactly he thinks. And Fuentes doesn't care because it's not about the truth. It's not about what he thinks. But it's about a general nihilistic, hateful agenda. That's what he's about. So what are you going to get? A nihilist? What are you going to get at somebody who's hateful? What are you going to get somebody, he said something horrible. Well, but that's his whole shtick. His whole shtick. Everything about Nick Fuentes is about saying horrible stuff. So what's the point? Like, the only thing that you could try to achieve in an interview like this, if you were going to do it, was to show that Nick Fuentes is a nihilist, and to show that, in kind of concrete terms, force him into a corner of saying things that reveal his real kind of political, intellectual, purpose. And I don't know how you do that. It would be difficult to do that. It's not easy to do that. But that's not what Piers Morgan, he showed him to be crude and a racist and a misogynist and he denied anti-Semitism, but okay, who knows if you agree with him or not. And he said some other horrible stuff, and they got into an argument about Nick Fuentes' father, but nothing that anybody who cared couldn't have found out very, very easily. And you platformed him in front of now 2 million views in 15 hours, according to Piers Morgan's Twitter account. He's very proud of this interview, and he keeps touting its success because he got a lot of views. And, most of the comments under the reviews were supportive of Fuentes. Fuentes went on a whole thing about being Catholic, what Catholic doctrine requires. And even though Piers claims to be a Catholic, he didn't understand what he was doing. He didn't understand what Fuentes was talking about, because Fuentes is, again, more intelligent and knows what he's trying to do. He knows who his audience is. He knows who he's playing to. And who is Piers playing to? the thing about Fuentes is to point out that he has nothing positive to offer human beings. That he is a collectivist and a tribalist, an emotionalist, who has no positive values for anybody to pursue. He is a cynic, a nihilist, and yeah, as part of that, when he thinks it's fun to do, he's a racist and a misogynist and an anti-Semite, and he admires Hitler when he thinks it's fun to do it. And Pierce was like, "You admire Hitler?" And he says, "Yeah, he's cool." And Pierce is like, "You know, he killed 12 million people." And he says, "Yeah, but he's cool. Yeah, he has these cool, uniforms, and he does these cool public events and had cool architecture. Cool. He was cool." And what does Pierce do about that? I mean, it's the same, by the way, as Curtis Yarvin that I showed you the clip the other day of Curtis Yarvin saying that what turned him on, what red-pilled him, what made him realize that everything around in the world was, something was really wrong in the world, was when he saw this video of images of decadence in the West juxtaposed against Nazis, well-dressed Nazis in their uniforms. I mean, you have to be really sick and depraved to take that as the alternative. Homeless people in the streets of San Francisco defecating in the streets, or Nazi uniforms and Nazis in uniforms. Nazis who mostly died because their leaders sent them into a war they were killed in. That's somehow good. That's somehow positive. So you've got to show the nihilism. You've got to show the positive values. What are you living for? What values should we pursue? What kind of what would be the program to implement your ideas, Nick? What would we actually do? And then you can show how empty and contentless and stupid, and there's nothing there. There literally is nothing there. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that, but I doubt this will happen. I'm hopeful that, this is it, that this is like the peak Fuentes, right? Doesn't get bigger than this. It's peak Fuentes. At this point, everybody knows who he is, so he gets the followers that he gets. He doesn't attract any new people. Before all this attention, a significant proportion of the people following Nick Fuentes were all kinds of bots. I don't know if a majority, but a significant number of them were just bots from all kinds of places other than the United States. And now a lot of people are following him. A lot of people know who he is, and this is it. Hopefully it dies here, and hopefully, the show dies, and his appeal dies, or it gets relegated to that corner of the internet where these weirdos and creeps and horrible people actually reside. Sadly, I don't think that's going to happen.